Hey friends, what's up? This is Kat and welcome back to my channel. So first off, before we start, I'd like to apologize for any background noise that you're going to hear all throughout this video because it's kind of noisy right now in my neighborhood and I don't know what to do with that. But anyway, I am super excited for this video. It's always one of my favorite videos to film every quarter. So finally, we are starting again for this year because we are currently done with the first quarter of 2023. And I'm going to share with you my quarterly statistics, my wrap-ups for all the books that I've read so far, and my new favorite books. So without further ado, let's start with this video. I don't know, I'm so hyper right now. So by the way, I actually have a coffee right now. Of course, we are going to start with our quarterly statistics. So for the first 3 months of 2023, I've read a total of 20 books. I am really satisfied with all the books that I have read so far this year because I truly think that all the books that I've read so far are books that I really want to read for such a long time. With that being said, I have here a total of 4,960 pages for the first quarter of the year, and then I have here a total of 21 hours in terms of audiobook. So moving on, I've read 9 books in January, 5 books in February, and 6 books in March. With my age group or age level for this year, as you can see, majority of the books that I've read are adult, so it has 85%, and then young adult with 15%. This is also a proof that I haven't read any middle grade books. This first quarter, I've started a lot of middle grade books, but I ended up setting them aside. With primary genre, it's a little bit scattered, but majority of the books I've read are romance, once again, thriller or mystery. And then I have here 15% of non-fiction books, and then 10% with science fiction and speculative fiction, and then a little bit of everything else. Okay, and then with the format, we have here, as you can see, majority of the books that I've read this year, 60% of it are ebooks, and it is because of my Kindle and because I am obsessed with my Kindle. And then I have 25% for paperback, hardcover, or physical books that I own, and then 15% of audiobooks. So yeah, those are all the important statistics that I have for the first quarter of the year. Now, let's move on to my tier ranking. So if you're familiar with how I do things right now on my channel, in 2021, I've decided to do an experiment of not rating any books. And because of that, I've made a personal tier ranking. And then following 2022 and this year as well, I've decided to just go through with the current setup because I feel like I am more comfortable in not rating books by numbers, but just rank it based on what I want, like which, is more appropriate for my reading experience. So that's what we're going to do as well this year. However, this is very exciting because I've made another tier ranking list. I'm so excited to share it with you guys. So I've been holding this off since January, but I've been thinking about it since then because I think in the 4-tier ranking that I had in the past, it doesn't really encapsulate, or I don't feel certain books are on the same level when it comes to experience or how I think about it objectively. So I've made the whole new set of tier ranking that I'm going to launch in this video. So in the previous one, we have 4 tiers. For this one, we have 6 tiers. So there are certain books that made me insert some of the new tiers in here, and I'm going to explain it a little bit. But we have 6 new tiers, and we're starting from the bottom, which is already part of the previous one, the disappointing or not for me tier, and then followed by a tier that I feel average about. So this is what we call as average feels. And then on the upper level, we have just a good time tier, and this is the new one. And then the next tier is also one that we already had before. This is liked it a lot or like it so much. And then the new one as well is perfection, not obsession. And I have a perfect book for this, and this is the main reason why I have to make a new tier like this one. So I'm gonna explain it later. And then lastly, of course, is new favorites, which I've made to ult favorites or ultimate favorites. So let's get on with our 20 books and how I tier ranked all of them. So we are going to skip the very first tier, which is disappointing or not for me, because I didn't have any books that I've put in this tier. I don't know if it's a good thing, or probably it is a good thing, because this year also I've been more proactive in DNFing books or not finishing a book when I feel like it's not for me. If I feel like the book will not be beneficial for my experience, I just DNF the fuck out of it. So that's why I don't really have any books on this tier. So let's move on to the next tier, which is average feels. You all know what this is. This is where we put the books that we feel average about. We don't have any strong emotions toward it, either negative or positive. We don't really care. I only have here 2 books on this tier. The very first book is one book that I've read in January, which is Evidence of the Affair by Taylor Jenkins Reid. So this is like a novella. We're following here like 2 characters, and the format of this book was these 2 characters were exchanging letters to one another because their spouses are currently in an affair. So it's only like 80 pages long, and it was pretty interesting, and I think we can all agree that Taylor Jenkins Reid's writing style was undeniably good. However, for her caliber, I think this book was pretty average. Among all the books that I've read from her, this is definitely my least favorite because I don't feel like so much emotions towards it or whatever. I just feel average about it. So anyway, moving on to the next book on this tier would be Paghilom by Kim Darla, February. So this book, I just spontaneously got it from National Bookstore. I just saw it and I felt like I could relate to what the book was trying to say because of, you know, paghilom is like healing. And honestly, I am in my healing era. I feel like I'm starting to heal myself with a lot of stuff. And I know that's pretty personal, but that's the reason why I got this book. Oh, by the way, this is a poetry collection. So yeah, I like the idea, but it wasn't mind-blowing. So it was just okay. So yeah, anyway, these are all the books that I have for this tier. And now let's move on to the next one. Alright, so our next tier is what I call as just a good time. These are books that I don't have strong emotions while reading it or even after I've closed the book, but I just know in myself that I enjoyed my time doing so. There's just some things in this book that didn't work for me, but still I enjoyed the majority of the time. So with that, let's start with the very first book, which is one that I've read in January, and that is Survive the Night by Riley Sager. So I've made a reading vlog wherein I've read 3 thrillers in 4 days, and this is one of the books that I've read in that vlog. So if you want to know my full thought, you can go ahead and watch it. I'll link it somewhere there. This book is about this woman who is going home to her hometown because of an incident that happened, and she met this stranger who is going to the same way as well. So they went together and shared the expenses and all that stuff, and while they're on the road, a lot of mysterious and suspicious things will happen all throughout. I feel like I really enjoyed the first 50 to 60% of this book. Like, I've felt confused and tensed and scared for our main character because we don't know who the other person is, and there's a serial killer who is going around their area and she thinks that he is him. So yeah, it was pretty exciting for me the first half of the book, but somehow the latter part of it just became flat. So this is a very perfect example of a book that I just had a good time, but it was not something that I can say that I really like so much, or something that, you know, I will remember, because honestly, I don't even remember the names of the characters at this point. So anyway, the next book that I have in here is The Bodyguard by Catherine Center, and I've also read this in January. So this book was an adult romance. We have here a woman main character who is part of this security service. She's going to be tasked to be a personal bodyguard of this famous actor, and they're going to do a fake relationship with his family because he doesn't want his family to know about the death threats and the danger that he is currently in. So it's a fake dating trope. Honestly, I really had a good time while reading this book. I feel kilig and emotions. I feel happy and I feel sad. So with my memories with this book, I had a good time reading it, but if I'm going to be honest, after I finished the book, I don't think that anything about it really stuck out to me. I don't think any of it was really that remarkable in my opinion. Moving on to the next book that I have for this is Days Darker by Alice Feeney. And I've read this in February for another video as well. And I've posted that vlog already. So again, if you want to know my full thoughts about this book, go ahead to that vlog. It's linked there. So this is about this family who is so strange and estranged with one another. How will I explain it? This has like a family drama. It's very juicy because you don't know what the family members thought of each other. And then one night they're going to gather in this grandmother's house, which is in an island. So of course, because this is a mystery thriller, all throughout the night family members will start to get killed one by one. So I think this story was inspired with And There Were None by Agatha Christie. I haven't read that book, so I don't know any of the references, but you know, I know what the main premise is. So yeah. So this book, honestly, I had a good time with this one, if not for the conclusion part. Like, the plot twist was pretty okay for me. Like, it's fine. I don't hate it. I don't love it that much, but it was okay for me. But I think the most annoying thing for me in this book, and the one that I didn't really like, was how it was all wrapped up in the end. How it was concluded and how everything was explained. So because of that, even though I've enjoyed this book, and even though I love all the family drama and all its juiciness, I just don't vibe with this book that much. So yeah, that's all I could say for Days Darker. Let's move on to the next and last book for this tier, and this is Kiss You by The Cat Who Doesn't Meow, which I've read in March. So this one, in all honesty, among all the books on this tier, this is definitely my most favorite one because I truly had a good time reading this book. So anyway, this is a Wattpad story written by a Filipino author, and this is also written in Tagalog. This follows these two childhood friends who fell in love with one another, but there are so many conflicts all throughout their relationships. So I really like the characters, I love the dynamics, I love the found family that we have in here because they're like neighbors who became, you know, families already of one another. I just love the vibe of this book, and this is the first book in a series, and I'm so excited to read the next ones because I know that it is about the other people in the compound or in their neighborhood. So I'm so excited for that. But I put it here because I feel like everything was so predictable. It was so cliche, and to be fair, for this book, it's for YA. But because I'm already like, you know, adult, I don't really find the plot or the storyline anything more than average. So because of that, I put it in this tier. But honestly, I really like this book. However, that's the problem. I'm not going to repeat everything I've said. So anyway, let's move on to the next tier. Alright, so the next tier that we have is, of course, a tier that we already had before, and this has liked it so much. So these are the books that I liked so much. Like, I really like them, but they did not end up as favorites for the quarter or for the year. So I have here a total of 5 books as far as I know. Yeah. Very first one is the first book that I read in January, and this is I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy. So this is, if you don't know yet, even though it's freaking everywhere, it's about Jeanette McCurdy, who is one of the main characters in the series called iCarly. And to be honest, I'm not really familiar with iCarly because I haven't watched it when I was younger, but I was familiar with like the characters because of the internet. So this is a memoir on how she was raised by her mother, who was, let's say, unhealthy for her. She also wanted to explain how her mom influenced her with majority of her life, and then her mom died, so she made this book. So anyway, this book was intense, and it unexpectedly triggered me at some point that I had to like put it down, set it aside for a few days and not read it because I was so triggered. But I thought that the main premise of this book was pretty much clear. This is about a girl who was heavily influenced by a psychologically incapable mother. So anyway, I just know that I really like this book. However, this is not on my favorites because I had some issues with how it gets so exhausting with Jeanette McCurdy's writing style, but I just really like this book. And of course, I commend Jeanette McCurdy for being brave and honest on writing this book, because it was truly something that if you're a fan of iCarly and if you know Jeanette McCurdy or if you're a fan of hers, this is definitely something that you would want to read. Another book that I have on this tier is one that I've also read in January. This is Unsaid, an Asian anthology that is edited by Anita Devi Pillai. So, this book is a short story collection that was kindly sent to me by Penguin Random House, Southeast Asia. And this is written by 15 Southeast Asian authors. And honestly, I really like this book. I don't know, but recently I'm just like so much into short story collection. So I like this book a lot. I thought that each story in this book really shined through, and it gave me a sneak peek on what authors across Southeast Asia could offer. However, my problem with anthology is that you cannot like all the stories. And that's also the reason for this one. But I just really like this book. That's all I could say. Okay, another book that I've read in January is Bahay ni Marta by Ricky Lee. This book is written by a Filipino author, also written in Tagalog. And this is about a child who was abandoned, who was homeless. And because of that, he found this abandoned house. And then that's where the story will actually start. So the most interesting thing about this book is that first, the child was unnamed. We don't know his backstory. We don't know who he is. We don't know anything about him. And then the second thing was the house was talking in this story. Like the house was telling the story about the people who live there. So it was a very interesting story to me. It was something that's so remarkable. And honestly, I did not expect I'm going to like it as much as I'm liking it right now. It has affected me in ways that I also did not expect. So yeah, there's just something about Ricky Lee's writing. I don't think I would ever forget the story. Moving on to another book that I like so much. So this one I've read in February, and this is The Weight of Blood by Tiffany D. Jackson. I've also made a whole reading vlog about this, wherein I've read books by Black authors in Black History Month. So again, link there. This book is about this young girl named Maddie who allegedly massacred 200 plus people in their prom night. So this is my third book by Tiffany D. Jackson, and I just adore how she always gives us important stories in YA. But by far, this is her best book yet, in my opinion. It was done so good, and I just know that Maddie will always haunt me and will always remind me that racism and colorism is a fight that we have to continuously battle every single day. So I'm going to start to sound a little bit weird because right now I'm having an allergic reaction. I don't know why, but we're going to move on. The last book that I have for this tier is called Next Year in Havana by Chanel Clayton, and this one I read in March for another reading vlog, which again linked up there. So this is a historical romance. So it follows the story of this woman who is part of this politically powerful family in Cuba, and this man who is on the other side, which means he is against the government of Cuba during that time. So this book has alternating timeline, and the plot was heavily influenced by the political climate in Cuba from the past and in the present. So yeah, I actually don't know how to express how much I love this book. Like I really love it. I really liked it. I love the characters. I love their dynamics. I love the writing. I love the setting, the Cuba itself, how it was so vivid in my mind while I was reading this book. I love the societal and political commentaries, but the only thing that I feel isn't right for me is that I fucking hate insta love. Like any insta love, insta attraction kind of trope, it doesn't work for me. The moment that I've read that this is an insta love, like, oh my god, I fucking hate it already. Like, that's the only thing that I don't like about it. But if not for that romance, this book would be one of my favorite reads of the year. So now let's move on to the next book. Okay, so this is the next tier, and you're going to figure out why I have this new tier on my ranking, okay? This is called Perfection Not Obsession, and I made this tier specifically for this one book, and that is The Stationery Shop of Tehran by Marjan Kamali. I've read this book in January, and it was then that I realized I have to make another tier for this book. So this is a historical fiction. It started with the story of this woman who found a letter from her ex-lover. In the past, the woman in the story, she was kind of like a person who doesn't really care about the politics in Iran, and she just goes on with her day and she just wants to study and, you know, finish school and get a job or something like that. And then she's going to meet this guy who is very into politics. Like, he was very vocal and active in terms of political stance in Tehran during that time. Fast forward to the present, the woman is already married to another person. So that's how like the whole premise is. And as I've said, this tier specifically, I've made it for this book because I think this book is perfect. Like, this book is perfection. I feel like it was perfectly written. It has a good balance of historical elements, of romance, of personal experiences, of introspection. I think this was objectively perfect as a book. However, I don't feel obsessed about this. Like, I don't feel any obsession towards it to make it my favorites. I was expecting that I'm going to cry in this book, but I did not shed a tear. Like, I felt emotions, of course, and there were moments that I was provoked emotionally and thoughtfully, but it wasn't really a lasting impression, or it wasn't really an impact that I was expecting. So I was a little bit disappointed on this part. However, I don't feel like it makes the book any less perfect. Okay, so that's the only book that I have for this tier. Now we're moving on to the very last one, which you all know, these are my ultimate favorite books. Oh my god, I'm so excited to share these books with you guys. But we're going to make this very quick as well, just like the others, so that you would be able to just go on with your day, and let's finish this video. So I have here a total of 8 books, and I think this is the most number of books that I have. And I'm just so happy that I was able to read 8 favorite books for this quarter. So let's start with the very first one that I've read, which is Local Woman Missing by Mary Kubika, and I've read this in January for, again, the thriller vlog that I was talking about earlier. This book is definitely one of the best mystery thrillers that I've ever read, and I just love everything about this book. Like, I'm obsessed with this book. So anyway, this book is about missing people in this small town. So the very first one that went missing was this woman who went out for a run during nighttime, and then she never came back. And then after 2 weeks, a mother and a daughter also went missing. So the book will start with the present time, 11 years after when the daughter came back. So this book, to give you a summary of how I feel about how this was written, this was a very satisfying book from start to finish. Like, I feel like everything was tied up. Every question was answered. There are no loopholes. I don't feel anything was lacking or missing. I just thought that everything was perfectly concluded, and that is also one of the very reasons why I love this book so much. However, I feel like if someone has read a lot of mysteries before, or you're really smart, you would have probably guessed a lot of things from the get-go. So yeah, but for me, it was such a good reading experience. But anyway, moving on to the next favorite, and this is another mystery thriller that I've read in January, and this is Confessions by Kanae Minato. I've read this together with Local Woman Missing and Survive the Night, so the vlog is out there. How will I describe this book? How will I express myself in this book? So this book started with a middle school teacher giving her last speech and lecture to her students because it's the last day of the class, and she was also resigning or retiring because of an incident that happened involving her daughter. So I don't know what else to say, but I guess that's it. It was just so insane. It was disturbing, fucked up. I've said this in the vlog as well. I don't really consider it as a mystery. It's more of a thriller that has psychological torture, psychological torment, because we already know who's who, we already know what's what, but we don't know what will happen. We don't know what the characters will do. And up until now, I could still remember each ending of each each chapter. I just love it. I love Kanai Minata's writing style. Oh my god, just so fucking good. So the next book that I have in here is Kindred by Octavia E. Butler. And this book, I read it in February. So this is another book that I've read for Black History Month. And oh my god, I just love this book. Initially, I wasn't putting this in this tier, but upon sitting on it for a few weeks, I just can't stop thinking about it. So this book was about this woman who mysteriously experience time travel. Like, she will go back even to the 1800s and she's going to meet a lot of interesting people. This book just affected me in more ways that I could count, and I cried, I teared up, I felt emotions toward the characters. However, I refuse to review any of the books that I've read during Black History Month for the reason that I am not the right person to review it. But I just want you to know that I feel so much emotions for this, and I've learned so much about this, most especially about colorism, racism, and Black slavery during the 1800s. So it was just a phenomenal book in my opinion. Next book that I have in here is probably my most favorite read of the year so far, and this is Finding Me by Viola Davis, which I also read during Black History Month in February. And I also did not review this book because of the same reason I've said earlier, but I just want to say that this is one of the best written memoirs that I have ever read in my entire life. I just love Viola Davis' writing style so much. It was so immersive. It was so thought-provoking and emotionally invoking. I am so stunned. I was so amazed by this woman. I loved her. I respected her from How to Get Away with Murder as being one of the best actresses out there. But my respect and my admiration towards her notched to another level when I finished reading this book. It made me realize so many things about, of course, colorism and racism, but at the same time, poverty. I love how she keeps on referencing on her 8-year-old self, like how brave 8-year-old Viola Davis was. So yeah, I just don't have any words for this book, but adoration, admiration, and my love for it. So moving on to the next book is Dig by A.S. King. This is another book that I've read in February, and this book has been on my TBR for such a long time, like since 2020 or something like that. So this one, it's actually hard for me to explain the premise of this book because I don't think I have the perfect words for it, but we are following in here 5 YA who are estranged cousins, and they've become estranged because of their parents and because of their family. So this has a lot of like family drama and conflicts. So they're going to uncover a few mysteries here and there, and it's just so hard for me to explain what this book is all about, but it's A.S. King. It's always going to be hard. It's always going to be weird and strange and weird. I don't know what else to say. And just, you know, a conclusion, I just realized that no one can write a complex YA story as much as A.S. King. Like, I can think of like Melina Marchetta, but A.S. King has this kind of vibe that you're just trying to untangle a lot of mess. There's just something about her writing that I cannot describe with words, but I just fucking love this book, and this is definitely one of the best YA books that I've ever read. Okay, so the next book that I have in here for you is Jade City by Fonda Lee. Okay guys, this book, this series, I already know that I'm going to love this, okay? That I'm going to devour this world. I just know it because of my friends, because of recommendations, because of many things in the community, because this is a well-loved series, and I'm just so glad that it did not disappoint. So I also have a reading vlog for this, again, like up there, and I just felt roller coaster of emotions while I was reading this book. And honestly, up until now, I don't know who to root for. Who character should I root for? They're so conflicting and complex that I don't know what to feel about them. Also, I could say that Fonda Lee has one of the most phenomenal writing that I've ever read. It was so vivid. I kept on saying this on the vlog because it was so true. I just like how everything just runs so smoothly with her writing style. I even thought of like how Susan Collins wrote the Hunger Games series. It was that vivid in my opinion. And I just know that Fonda Lee is a writer who's going to hurt me in the process of reading their books. But I'm still going to do it because I love hurting myself, apparently. Next book that I have in here is another book that I've read in March, and this is Fina by Nina Cipri. Oh my god, this book I fucking love this. I love this book. Oh my gosh. But anyway, I was reading this book for Trans Rights Readathon, and I was so glad I picked this up because it was so good. So this is actually a sci-fi fantasy novella. We have here less than 100 pages, and we are following this couple who have broken up by the start of the story, and they work in this store that is like IKEA. But the thing is, it has a wormhole. And then an old woman who is a customer went missing to this wormhole, and their superiors tasked them to search for that woman. And they don't know what to expect when they pass through it. This just has everything I never thought I wanted. This has a lot of elements. This has characters that I wasn't expecting I'm going to root for. This has a romance that I fucking love so much. It also has a lot of great commentaries when it comes to capitalism and low-wage earners, how they were just sent out in the wormhole without knowing anything. And for a short story, the author really did a great job on balancing out every element of this book. It was just so good. It has depth, it has humor, it has adventure, it has sci-fi elements, everything that I never thought I wanted in books. It's here. Last book. Oh my god, guys. Finally, we are on to the last book. I'm filming for more than an hour. I have to finish this up. So last book that I have in here for this tier is, of course, another memoir that I have read. This one is going to be very biased because I fucking love this author. This is You're That Bitch and Other Lessons About Being Unapologetically Yourself by Bretman Rock. Oh my god. So again, as I've said, this is going to be a very subjective review because I fucking love Bretman Rock. You guys don't understand. I don't think anyone understands how much I love this person. Bretman Rock is an icon, and honestly, I don't know what else to tell you because this book is as phenomenal as they are. So this book is just a story of a young gay growing up in the Philippines and then migrating to Hawaii and finding herself and then going viral in social media. So this is just Bretman Rock from start to finish. And guys, if you're reading this book, if you can get the audiobook, please do listen to it with audiobook because I don't think the physical copy or the written text would really make sense without the audiobook. So I'm just telling you that. So that's it, guys. Those are all the first 20 books that I've read in the first quarter of the year, and I'm going to end this video right now because I've been filming for 1.5 hours. I don't know how will I edit this one and how will I post it during the weekend, and honestly I need to stop vlogging right now because I have to start editing right away. And that's it for this video. I hope that you have enjoyed as much as I've enjoyed doing this, and I hope that I will be able to follow this up in the next quarters of the year, and I hope that you also have a great quarter. So if you reach this part, what is your most favorite book that you've read from January to March of 2023? Let me know in the comment section. And yeah, that's it. I hope that you're having a good day, good night, good whatever, and I hope that you remember that the world is yours for the reading. Bye, and see you on the next one. Grabe, 1 hour and 31 minutes. Paano ka mag-edit?